This is home. Twin States News starts right now.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Harriet Wallace. Ann has the night off. Well, the dam at Archuas Water Park in Quitman, Mississippi has breached. Twin States News reporter Jacobus Roby talks to the park director about the incident and shows us the aftermath of the breach. Jacobus?
I got the call about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon from our park manager here. She said that the emergency spillway had breached.
What once was a beautiful reservoir has now turned into a scene no one wants to see, according to park director Alan Wright.
At this time, we don't know exactly why it happened. We have had some issues here, but the park staff has done a real good job, keeping an eye on it.
Although it's unclear what exactly caused the breach, Chief of the Mississippi Dam Safety Division, William McKercher, has his thoughts.
Looks like we had a failure, or a portion of the dam right adjacent to the spillway started to wash out, and it undermined the concrete in this auxiliary spillway, or a secondary spillway, and it caused a portion of that to collapse and fall. And then ultimately that led to complete loss of the reservoir.
Seeing incidents like this before, Chief McKercher also shares his advice to dam owners.
One of the things that we encourage dam owners to do is they're actually required by law to inspect their dams every 60 days to stay familiar with the current conditions, but then also to be able to identify problems as they develop.
Park Director Alan Wright is also happy there was no casualties.
Emergency management people all came out last night and responded well to this. There was nobody in danger downstream. Nobody had to be evacuated because of the water. So it went pretty well considering all.
Now the park says that it is still too early to know what caused the dam to breach, but that it will take some time before everything is back to normal. In Quitman, Jacobus Roby, Twin States News.
A sigh of relief around the country, but certainly from the family, friends, and police after 25-year-old Carly Russell of Hoover, Alabama has been found. Russell, if you remember, vanished after she called 911 to report a stranded toddler she found on a busy highway July 13th. Her parents believe that the child was being used as bait to lure their daughter out of her car. Police say Russell was dropped off at her home 2 days later and appeared to be in shock. It's not clear where she's been since her disappearance. Police said they were going to give her time to recover before interviewing her. Authorities resumed searching for 2 children lost during Saturday's fatal flash flooding in Pennsylvania. This as more extreme weather and record-setting temperatures are expected again this week. Alexandra Hoff is in Washington with the latest.
More than a quarter of the U.S. population fell under extreme heat advisory Sunday as triple-digit temperatures soared, breaking heat records in the South from California to Florida. This week, that same heat dome is expected to linger.
Feels like football practice in the middle of August. That's what it feels like. It's hot.
Death Valley is dominating global heat records, topping 128 degrees over the weekend, close to the hottest recorded temperature ever documented on Earth.
Oh, your arms are burning, your face is burning.
In the Northeast, more extreme weather brought heavy rain, spurring a round of flash flooding that claimed at least 5 lives in Pennsylvania.
Huge gust of water just came down from 532. Down a hill.
Across other parts of the East Coast, officials urged caution as more rain threatened dangerous landslides.
We want everybody to just be vigilant and be careful.
In New York, strong storms led to hundreds of flight cancellations at airports and tornado warnings along the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border.
And as I said before, this is possibly our new normal.
And while Earth had its hottest recorded days this month, scientists say next year could be even hotter as El Nino isn't expected to peak until later this year. In Washington, Alexandria Hoff, Fox News.
Could a third-party candidate emerge and make a run for the White House in 2024? Well, with so many voters appalled at their likely options, the group No Labels is making waves, especially since they've got Senator Joe Manchin's support. Carolyn Shively has the story from Washington.
In this country's history, a third-party candidate has never won a presidential election. But most Americans aren't thrilled with the idea of a Donald Trump versus Joe Biden rematch in 2024 either. So some are searching for an alternative.
There's widespread dissatisfaction with both parties, major institutions, and really our whole system of government.
A bipartisan group called No Labels has made it their mission to get a middle-of-the-road third-party candidate on the ballot for those tired of the political extremes.
The problem is the American people are not buying what the two parties are selling.
They boast a common-sense agenda meant to unite the country, like a path to citizenship for dreamers and lowering health care costs. Now speculation is growing that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin could be their candidate of choice. Manchin's a centrist Democrat, known to buck his own party. He's in New Hampshire heading a No Labels event.
This whole thing has come about because the country's never been as divided as it is now.
Democrats fear a third-party candidate could split the vote and land a Republican in the White House. So they're throwing shade at the No Labels organization.
This is a few individuals putting dark money behind an organization. And that's not what our democracy should be about. It should not be about a few rich people.
No Labels says they'll stay out of the 2024 race if polling shows their candidate would play a spoiler role. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Well, Hollywood's shutdown intensifies as actors and writers strike for better wages and AI protections. Lindsay Reiser is in New York near the picket lines with what's at stake for the industry and for those on strike.
We are outside Rockefeller Plaza here, where this is day 2 of picketing after this strike now with SAG-AFTRA. The weekend proved no negotiations, no breakthroughs. And so people are still out here on strike. That means not participating in any productions, no premieres, even things like the San Diego Comic-Con on July 20th could be impacted if an agreement isn't made until then. So take a look at the people behind me. What are some of the sticking points? Well, they're working for a livable wage. This is what they're striking for. Also, concerns over AI and their likeness being used in perpetuity without permission and without compensation. And they're also concerned about the dwindling residuals since the advent of streaming. And so right now I'm being told there is no negotiation schedule. So it's unclear how long this is going to go for, but the people here tell me they are willing to go for as long as it takes. They have 160,000 members, and they tell me they have buy-in from 98% of the membership for this strike. Remember, they're on strike at the same time as the Writers Guild, and something that hasn't happened in 60 years. So this is a pivotal point here for the industry as we wait to see what agreement, if any, SAG-AFTRA is able to make with the studios.
Was it an enemy attack or a false flag operation? More explosions on the main bridge linking Russia and Crimea have both sides pointing fingers. Alex Hogan has more from London.
Another setback for Russian troops in southern Ukraine. The main bridge from Russia to the occupied Crimean Peninsula is now closed to traffic after major explosions went off before dawn on Monday. 2 civilians were reportedly killed and a child injured. It's not clear exactly what caused the explosions. Russia blames Ukraine, while the Ukrainians claim it's a Russian provocation.
As a result of the incident, traffic on the Crimean Bridge was stopped. The reasons are being clarified. The information will be published on official sources.
The incident comes just hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin issued an ominous new warning to the Ukrainian military. Ukrainian officials said late last week they received the first rounds of cluster munitions from the U.S. And Putin says if they're used, the Russians will follow suit.
The Russian Federation has a sufficient stockpile of various types of cluster munitions. Until now, we have not used it, but of course, if they are used against us, we reserve the right to take reciprocal actions.
Meanwhile, Russia officially canceled a deal allowing the safe export of much-needed Ukrainian grain through the blockaded Black Sea. Moscow says it needs to set up its own food and fertilizer exports, prompting sharp criticism from world leaders.
They have to blame Russia for this decision, completely unjustified, weaponizing the hunger of the people.
And U.S. aid chief Samantha Power is in Kyiv today to announce a humanitarian aid package worth more than $500 million. In London, Alex Hogan, Fox News.
In a clinical trial, Eli Lilly's experimental drug donanemab slowed the progression of Alzheimer's disease by as much as 60% in patients in the earliest stages of the disease. Researchers say overall, patients on the drug slowed Alzheimer's progression by about 35%, but then that jumped to 60% for those in the earliest stages of the disease. Experts are quick to point out that the drug is not a cure for the disease, and its benefits amount to only about a 7-month delay in the loss of memory and thinking. The study also showed brain swelling occurred in more than 40% of patients with a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's, and the deaths of 3 trial patients were linked to this treatment. The company has submitted their results to the FDA, and they expect a decision about the drug by the end of the year. Still ahead, we've got your forecast for the week. Plus,
the numbers are in for the 2024 presidential field and the individual campaign's financial health. I'm Alexandra Hoff in Washington with more on the dollar amounts and why it's not all good news.